Hey, it's Whitney from EcoVeganGal.com. I just returned home from seeing the movie Blackfish in theaters, which is a documentary, and wanted to do a video about that movie, specifically other documentaries about animals and what's going on in the world, and kind of create a conversation. I know this is one-sided, but I can't wait to hear your responses as always. So, beginning with Blackfish, if you haven't heard of it yet, this is a documentary about orca whales and specifically around SeaWorld. If you pay attention to the news, you may have heard over the years about various problems that SeaWorld has had with orca whales. Some deaths that have happened to their trainers, some near deaths, a bunch of different tragedies, as well as some smaller, similar what's the word that you would describe as SeaWorld? Not aquarium, but an animal park, I guess. And marine animal park. Marine park? I don't even know what they're called because I frankly don't really pay attention to them anymore. I haven't been to one since I was a little girl. And they brought up a lot of different points in here that I wanted to discuss. The main thing that I want to discuss, which comes up in conversations while talking about documentaries that usually have to do with animal rights of some sort and raising awareness about how we treat animals, is really the feelings that you have anticipating the film, whether you're excited for the film, you're interested, you're nervous about it, the feelings that you have after the film, during the film, of course, and all these different emotions that we go through. I think it's incredibly important to see films like this, to educate yourself. One thing that I hear over and over again, especially from vegans and people that are active in the animal rights community, is, I already know enough, I'm already a part of the movement, I don't really want to see these movies, they affect me really strongly. And frankly, in this case, I went into the film, I wouldn't say excited because I knew that it was kind of a sad subject, but I was very curious and I am always looking forward to getting more information. And I don't want to scare you away, and we'll talk more about this, but I have to say that the movie was a little bit harder for me to watch than I realized. I've seen a lot of films about how we treat animals, some of them even the worst, whether it be Earthlings or Fur Trade. I've seen a lot of very challenging films to see, and this film wasn't challenging visually because you didn't really see any animal cruelty. In fact, if I think about it, the closest they came to animal cruelty in that film was capturing the animals, but really nothing was happening. They were just taking animals and shipping them somewhere. You never saw anybody hitting animals or anything. It's not that type of film. And any injuries that happened to the animals in the film were from other orcas hurting each other. So it's very unlike other documentaries out like that. But the emotional roller coaster on this is something I don't know, I didn't expect for some reason. I think they did a really good job at tugging at your heartstrings and making you realize the connections because of how similar a lot of marine animals are to human, psychology-wise, family-wise, culture. All of these different connections that we can make there, and you start to realize them as part of the film, and I think that's probably one of the most powerful things. So I walked away from that film having a very heavy heart, and it's been about an hour since it ended, and I'm starting to feel better, mainly gearing up to make this video because I think that there's something really important to take away from it. My point in saying that is that I really encourage you, wherever you are in your stage of learning more about how we treat animals, to try your best to open your eyes to films like this and information like this. I know it's incredibly hard to see films that involve any type of cruelty, and cruelty could be in so many different capacities. We often think of cruelty as killing animals, whether it's for population control or consumption, entertainment. There's so much that goes on and so many different ways that we control and abuse animals and manipulate them, and there's just a lot of different emotions that go on around that theme and a lot of avoidance. What I find most fascinating, and you probably think of a lot when you see these types of films or start to read about information, the topic comes up, is how fascinating it is from a psychology level that humans engage in all of these acts of manipulation, control, and cruelty to animals, and it continues on and on and on. In fact, I wish I could remember the exact quote in Blackfish, but one of the interviews was talking about how we're going to look back on this, hopefully 50 years from now, and just be astounded at the brutality that we are inflicting upon these animals, and how almost, we look back on the civil rights movement and all the different types of civil rights movement, whether it was for skin color, whether it was for gender, whether it was for sexuality. We've gone through all different types of civil rights here, and we look upon that with such horror and disbelief that we've treated other people like that. But what's interesting is that we haven't quite come to that place with animals necessarily. Many people have, but collectively, we still inflict a lot of bizarre behavior upon animals as if they are there for us to control. And it's a very common thing to hear from some people that believe that animals really were put on Earth. However you believe we got here, some people believe that animals are here for us to use. And I feel like a big takeaway for me in that film, and again, something else that was said verbally in that film, was how as children, we're taken to places like SeaWorld, and we witness animals in captivity. We witness them being manipulated and trained and used for entertainment, and we think that that's all right. That happens a lot with circuses as well, and thus we grow up our entire lives thinking that that's okay, much like if we grow up consuming animal products, we think that that's okay. If we're educated to believe that animals are here for our entertainment, for our consumption, if we need animals, or if animals enjoy being entertainment, or if animals' only purpose is here for us to consume them, these ideas get into our heads at a very young age. And I think that that's one of the most dangerous things, and one of the most important reasons why we should see films like Blackfish, because we need to collectively realize that what we learned as children, the entertainment that we sought out as children, and the way that we've been manipulated as children. Because what's interesting about SeaWorld, for example, is, and I'm sure anybody that went there at a young age can relate to this, and the same thing with zoos and circuses, we go there because we have a natural curiosity about animals, especially wild animals. We don't get to see them. They're not like dogs, where we interact with them in our daily lives and we almost take them for granted. A wild animal is a whole different story. And so when you see something like an orca in a tank, and an orca doing tricks in the air, and people oohing and aahing, this collective consciousness of excitement around that. But as I've gotten involved with the vegan movement, the animal rights movement, anytime that I see an animal used for any sort of entertainment, even if it's just on a leash or something, any type of bizarre animal out there, it makes me uncomfortable, because I can no longer look at animals in that sense. If something other than a dog or a cat, or birds or various animals that we see commonly and we refer to as pets, or what I prefer, companion animals, when we see different animals, it's very jarring and exciting to us. So even like a parrot or something, or a snake, there's something exciting about them when somebody has them and calls them a pet. But we have to kind of step back and say, the reason this is exciting is we don't see it very often. We don't see it very often because these animals aren't really meant to be domesticated. Some may argue that even dogs and cats aren't meant to be domesticated. And I could understand that stance. We have all these different perceptions, and my point here, I'm kind of rambling, but I hope that you see where I'm going, is that we really need to step back from this consciousness, especially when it comes to bigger animals and very wild animals that are kept in captivity just for our entertainment, just so that we can see them up close. That's such a selfish thing. And that was one of the big points of this movie, Blackfish, and how organizations like SeaWorld have trained us from a very young age to believe that that's okay, to believe that animals enjoy performing. But all this different evidence in that film leads up to say that these animals are not happy, they're not being treated well, and they're rebelling. We want to get angry at animals for rebelling, but if we're stepping into their environment and manipulating them in a way that's not natural to them, they're going to become frustrated, they're going to become revengeful. You could say the same thing with maybe even sharks. If you've been paying attention to Shark Week at all, I can't help but think, you know, the times that there have been shark incidences, why are they happening? Are we in their natural habitat? Are we getting in the way? It's not that there has anything to do with us as humans. This is just their natural instincts. And it's also interesting, a little bit of a digression here, but you know, you keep seeing these facts about the number of shark times that a shark kills a human is much, much less than the times that a human kills a shark. And yet the thing that gets the media attention is the sharks killing the humans. And the thing that gets the media attention with the orcas is when the orcas kill or injure a trainer. That's suddenly when we start paying attention to this. And it's so sad that these horrible instances have to happen in order for us to stand back and say, wait a second, what's going on here? A few other things that, well, I guess the next big thing that I want to bring up, I think that what's really important for us right now is to recognize that we're in a time of awakening. You know, there was this fear almost that I've noticed in people of they don't want to see films like this because these films make them sad, these films make them angry, and they don't know what to do with themselves. And I think it's really important for us to look at the positive side and to really compose ourselves and decide, make a conscious decision to stop feeding into negative energy. And negative energy to me is sadness and anger. And although those can be very hard emotions to get under control, I think it's worth it for us to look on the bright side of things and to say, okay, these are very sad things that are happening, they're depressing, but what can we do to change it? How can we help shift the consciousness here? I think that we should be really thankful that films like this exist, and that's why we should go see them and support them. We should educate ourselves, even if we think we know. All of these documentaries have something to teach us. Even if we're seeing something for the second time, even if we're hearing words that we've already heard before, I feel like the more that they're in our minds, the more that they're reinforced, the more that we're willing to get up and do something about it, and the more that we're able to articulate things that go into that. For me personally, ever since I had a chat with Sean Monson years and years ago, there's an interview, if you'd like to click right here, you can check it out. One of the most powerful things anyone's ever said to me is that we can't refuse what we can't refuse with our eyes what they must endure with their bodies, and that's a famous quote that he reiterated. And I think of that every time a movie about animal rights, animal cruelty comes out. And I really try to see it myself. Even if it's hard to see, I feel like it's important for me to take it in and to come to peace with the misery that they've been inflicted upon, and use it as another tool to keep moving and keep motivated. And a lot of people don't like to look at things that way, but I hope that you will consider that. We may not be the humans that are inflicting pain or cruelty or manipulation onto the animals ourselves, but we are part of a collective society here. And if other people aren't willing to examine that aspect of life, I feel like we should do our best to do it for them as further motivation, if that makes sense. And I've gotten to a lot of different conversations about this, and maybe it's something that you can give some thought. Just thinking about what each of us can do. And I think that we should all be thankful to have an open mind, really thankful for that. Because when you see a film like Blackfish, you recognize that there are a lot of people in this world who are not aware of the harm that they're causing, whether they're directly involved or they're indirectly involved. So whether you're an owner of a place like SeaWorld or an employee of a place like SeaWorld, or on the other hand, a patron. Are you going to places like SeaWorld, to circuses, to zoos? Are you paying money? Are you voting with your dollar and saying that this is okay? It's also about what you're not doing. I think it's very important for us to get involved with things like this and to educate ourselves. And again, why it's important to see documentaries like this is it's very helpful for us to be active, whether it's simply seeing a film and talking about it, having discussions with people in our lives, tweeting about it, Facebooking it, Instagramming it, whatever social media tool you want to use to get the word out. And I certainly want to do that, whether it's creating a video like I am to express your opinion on it and share it with the community that supports you. It's very important that you speak up and say something, even if you don't think your voice is loud enough. I hear this, I'm sure you've heard this many times before, every voice matters, and it's true. But yet so many of us find excuses to not get involved. For me, for example, I'm not that into going to protests. It's I don't know, an uncomfortable thing for me, or I've made up a million excuses not to go to protests, and maybe that's just not my thing. But if I'm not going to go to a protest, for example, then I should protest things online and contact companies like SeaWorld. Even if I feel like I'm just one of thousands of people who's written SeaWorld a message, you never know when you're going to be the last straw, right? You're never going to know when somebody's going to pay attention to your word specifically. So get involved in however way you can. If it's not comfortable for you, find something else. Be a part of that change. Help to inspire and educate. And the last thing I want to say is that once you see a film like Blackfish, whether you are reflecting on Shark Week or any aspect of paying more attention to how we treat animals, I think it's very important to reserve judgment and to be patient and understanding and have compassion for people. We can have a lot of compassion for animals, but we have to extend that compassion to other people and understand that everybody's on a different path and a journey in a different place. And being judgmental, being rude, pointing fingers, being angry at others for doing things to animals, I don't think is very constructive. The best thing that we can do is tell them how we feel in a very uncharged way. So stepping back, collecting yourself, and then speaking, whether you're writing a letter, whether you're doing a video, whether you're having a face-to-face conversation or a phone call, however you want to speak to individuals that you would like to see shift, do it in a compassionate way. I feel like that makes the biggest difference. And if you feel like, and don't be attached to their response or their actions. A lot of people, it takes time. But if you can just be one person, a drop in that bucket, you never know how many drops it's going to take for that bucket to fill up and overflow and do something. It's a weird analogy, perhaps, but I think you know what I'm saying here. You just have to be part of it and be unattached to what exactly your part is. You can't expect to change people. You can only hope that you can be part of their inspiration, and that's exactly what I am doing right now with this video. It's a long one. I had a lot to say, but I really can't wait to hear your thoughts on this, whether it has anything to do with Blackfish or just this topic in general. And please converse with each other, but always be compassionate to one another. It's really heartbreaking for me when I see people attack others on anything eco-vegan gal. Well, thank you so much for watching as always. If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe so you're the first to know when I make more videos like this. And I'm always on social media chatting away. I love hearing from you. You can leave comments below and send me emails, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching.